All right, man. Welcome to Crow 777 Radio. This is episode 658.5. Jason Lingren is with me, and Theresa Bacola returns. To refresh your memories, Theresa stood up for all of us when they illegally closed a beach in California during Covidius Minimus. You can reference the time she's been on by going to episode 610, episode 479, episode 522.5, that's a 1 hour, and episode 580.5, that is also a 1 hour. She's been at it ever since. What's it been? Something like 5 years, I guess. And you can kind of see what it takes to stand up against a system that's been rigged against you. What I noticed about the people who stood up for themselves after being maltreated, I guess that's a good enough word, during COVID, like losing your job or other things, is that every single person that stood up and used the system that I have seen has succeeded at some level. But the point is the amount of effort many of them had to put in, which this is a good example. It's ridiculous that a human being has to put this kind of effort forward to get the legal system to do what it's supposed to do in the first place. Anyhow, welcome, Jason.
And a way too cold good morning.
So anything you want to say about this before we bring Theresa in?
Well, I'm glad to see that things are finally moving in a positive direction for her, because it's just been such an uphill battle going against the system. It's always a pain.
I mean, comedy of errors, and it's actually not a comedy, comes to my mind. And the thing that gets me is when I see so many rules broken or ignored, it appears from an outsider like me looking in as if this is the way it operates and nobody is really fixing it. And when someone like Theresa comes along to get it fixed, well, we're going to cover what it takes to get it fixed. Anyhow, welcome, Theresa.
Thank you so much for having me back on. It's great to be here. Yeah.
So it's been what? It's been like 5 years now, hasn't it?
It has been 5 years going into my 6th. That's right.
What was the initial date? So let's refresh some memories. That there was an incident on the beach where people were manhandled, and a state beach, I think it was illegally closed. Do you recall the date that this occurred?
Yes, it was July 3rd, 2020, and it is a city beach.
City beach.
It's not state. Yeah.
So do you have any websites or information you want to put out before we get into this?
Yeah, well, there's my website for my artwork, which is my name, theresabacola.com. If they want to make a donation at the end of the podcast, they can go to Give, Send, Go, help Theresa in her fight for justice. And donations further like Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. And my YouTube channel. I haven't been able to post any videos in a while, but I did post a few in-depth ones on what was happening in the court and what was happening with the beach, quote unquote, closure. And that's also under my name.
All right. So we're going to open up with an appeal that you're doing, but very concisely and very briefly, can you just bring folks up to date so they get why we're picking up in an appeal?
Yes. So my judge completely dismissed my case in October of 2024. And I filed a notice of appeal a few days later. And the last time that we had a podcast, we were in limbo because they had not scheduled my appellate brief. And they finally did. It was 4 months after I filed my notice of appeal. They said, okay, your appellate brief is due in 6 weeks, and you have to pay an additional $605 in order for us to move forward. So I did pay the $600, then filed my appellate brief and filed a bunch of other documents. And I forget when it was. I think it was end of May. They said, oh, well, you filed your notice of appeal too late. Your appellate case is now dismissed. And I found that out on a Tuesday night, and it was, I really had, I don't know, a panic attack, or I don't think it's as extreme as a nervous breakdown, but I thought that the entire thing had gone down the tubes.
That would have taken the train off the tracks had the appeal been ditched.
That's correct.
Do you feel like there was a strategy to try to time you out?
Oh, yes. The fact that they waited 4 months to even tell me that they had scheduled my appeal was like more delay tactics, because they're supposed to immediately schedule your appeal, but they didn't. They waited 4 months, and they also had me pay another $600. And then they dismissed it because they said the notice of appeal was 2 days late. So I couldn't sleep again, and spoke with a friend of mine that has a bit of experience. I said, no, you have to file Rule 60B motion. And I said, I already filed one of those. He said, I don't care, file another one. So I did. I took about the next month. Yeah, I think it's the next month, working nonstop to file this Rule 60B motion. And then I was able to go back into the lower court to get the lower court case reopened. And then I started following back and forth with these new attorneys. But we did not cover what happened once I filed I forgot to cover, once I filed my appellate brief in the appellate court. And to review, I discovered that Carmel's main attorney in February of 2024 had not only failed to file his notice of appearance, actually both the partners in that firm, the only ones on the case, both failed to file their notice of appearance, but the main one had also failed to become authorized to practice law in that court. So I discovered that, and I filed a document, and the firm withdrew him from the case, and then he wound up losing his partnership in that firm. They replaced him with 2 associates, and the one associate, the male associate, is the one that wound up getting my case dismissed in the Northern District. So when I filed my appellate brief and I reported that these 2 new associates had committed perjuries, they had engaged in ex parte communication, they had not cooperated with discovery, and there were a myriad of other rule-breaking behavior that they had engaged in. 1 week after I filed that appellate brief, the new associate withdrew from the case. He also wound up losing his job. In addition to the other associate, she also wound up losing her job. Now, the only reason I found this out was because I think it was about 3 months later, I sent these new associates an email, and the email got bounced back to me. Now, the firm was leaving their profiles up on their website.
That sounds like strategy.
It was strategy. They were leaving their profiles up on their website. I had no idea that they had also lost their jobs.
How many people have been booted out of this firm to date because of all this?
Well, okay, the main one, that was definitely my work. The other 2, it's alleged. Okay, these are just theories. It's the timing. It could have something to do with me. It seems highly likely. But I was checking the State Bar website to see where they had gone, but the firm was leaving their profiles up on. Okay, so it did seem like strategy. Okay, that would be 3 attorneys.
So on the whole, I recall from our past conversation, I believe it was a police chief that became a security guard. Then, if I remember correctly, ended up going back to the city. Is that correct? Is my memory correct there?
Yeah, but he's retired too. So
the city took him back after he went to go be a security guard to lay low for a while, though. Is that right?
That is correct. And then they gave him his job back, I think, for less than a year, but he has also retired.
Sounds like maybe that was a deal for retirement.
Yeah.
Was he of retirement age, or do you think the water was just getting too hot and it just wasn't worth it anymore?
No, I don't think he was 60. But I'm not sure, but he was not retirement age. It was premature. And I didn't even, I'm losing track of all these guys, but I didn't even include that in the email that I sent you. That's additional. So he retired about 6 months ago.
The reason I bring this up is because the more we cover this, and I vowed to cover it until you get an outcome, I can't tell you how disappointed I was over and over again during COVID when people were just blatantly abused and just rolled over and took it. Now, on one hand, I get that people are worried about doing what you're doing. And most of the time, I'm not suggesting doing it at that level. But with what you've done, I think we're talking about 5 or 6 people at this point that got caught up in doing the wrong thing and got booted out of what they were doing.
That would be correct, but knowledge is power. And, it's like a law of the universe that when you devote that much time and energy into a project, it has to yield results. You might not get the big win when you want, but you are going to see victories along the way. And also, it was 3 attorneys from that firm. And then the one that had my case dismissed, he went to another firm. Okay. So he's a brand new attorney. I think he just got his license at the end of 2023. So he goes to a new firm, and now I'm back I'm in the lower court, and I'm duking it out with those guys. And he has on his profile in the new firm, he says, I recently prevailed on a Fourth Amendment civil rights case in the Ninth Circuit, saving a Bay Area client the burden of appeal. And I was like, is he bragging about beating me?
This is the appeal we're talking about that you thought you had lost, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But now, because I figured out how to get the other case reopened, he hasn't won an appeal. And additionally, he withdrew from the case before the appeal got dismissed. So I don't even know if he can make that boast, but the case is still live. So I got my dander up about that, about that boast. So I took an entire day to write an email to 38 partners in his new firm. And I said, require clarification on this attorney's profile. And did you know that he is under investigation by the Standards Committee in the Northern District? I attached a bunch of documents, including his perjuries, that I sent to the firm. I said, if he's talking about my case, you need to take that line off your website because I'm still in the game and nothing has been won. And if he's not talking about my case, then you need to let me know so I can look up the docket number and the name in the Ninth Circuit. Okay. They fired him before the end of the day. They removed his profile completely off their website. And so he had to move to a completely new firm within a week. So in total, allegedly 3 attorneys 4 times.
I mean, the carcass count is piling up here. If 100 people from coast to coast in this country would have opted to do what you did, which is not easy, which is why I'm always covering it, I'm guessing the system would change. But at this point, do you have any idea how much money you've had to throw at this?
How much money? Me?
Yeah. Personally, do you know how much it has cost you to do this?
Well, probably, oh gosh, I really don't know. I've paid for classes, advisors.
And you don't have an attorney, right? You don't have an attorney working with you.
No, but really, time is money. So if I was going to convert all the time I've spent and how I didn't have the time to actually do my glass work, it's inestimable. It's been 5 solid years.
Well, those attorneys at the firm prove that time is money. And if you got a bill from them, it would probably be minimally $300 an hour.
Oh, yeah. Oh, certainly. And egos and pride. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So at this point, do you feel like you can see light at the end of the tunnel?
Oh, yes, because I also, this is another alleged, which is I had, at least it was thrilling. Whether or not it was another notch in my bedpost, I'm never going to know. But it was at the beginning of September, I sent a notice of intent to litigate and a rough draft of a new lawsuit to both Carmel and to their insurance company. And this was when I was almost ripped out of my car in September of 2023 by the same officer that I'm already suing. And then once he found out who I was, he let me go. Okay, but I sent it to both Carmel and the insurance company, and I said, hey, I'm going to sue you again. Now, mind you, I have cost just Carmel upwards of $250,000 in legal fees.
Wow. I mean, this is what I'm talking, that was all avoidable. Has Carmel ever made a statement about recognizing that they don't have the authority to close the beach in the way they did?
No, but it did come in code.
How so?
Well, it's what I wrote to you guys about with the announcement that they just made in the paper. Oh, and it came in the language of nature or God, and that has to do with the symmetry of what they posted on the front page of the Pine Cone a couple of weeks ago. So to remind people, this is in my videos, the city manager is the one that unilaterally decided on a last minute whim that he was, quote unquote, closing our beach. And this was 2 weeks after he and the mayor made a public announcement to the entire country that everyone was welcome to come to the beach. The great outdoors are always open. We're not going to close the beach. And then tourists got here and they were welcomed by police tape and the beach actually being cordoned off like a crime scene, and one tourist getting attacked in the ocean and me getting arrested. Then city council gloated about it, the next city council meeting that they had. And the city manager is the one that signed the emergency order that you would do 6 months in jail for sunbathing, bringing a cooler or an umbrella or a chair onto the beach. The chief of police did an interview with the local paper, and he said that you were going to do a jury trial for bringing a chair. You were going to have a jury trial, and they were filling out police reports for people bringing a chair onto the beach. And the city manager is one of the main defendants in my present lawsuit. So I really had a hair trigger for this guy, and I did not take kindly to any of that. That they were really intoxicated by their own illusion of power, and this guy was the spearhead of that illusion. So I sent them this notice of intent to litigate a couple of months ago. They just renewed his contract less than a year ago. They praised him every time they had a city council meeting. They have given him 4 raises since he ordered his police department to attack us for walking on the beach. And 2 months after they get this notice of intent to litigate, he announces that he is, quote unquote, retiring. Oh yeah, I should talk about this too. I totally forgot. So there was like a spate of when me and my badass pro se litigant friends were hammering all these COVID tyrants with documents that soon thereafter they would announce that they were, quote unquote, retiring so they could spend more time with their family. It's been an on-running joke with me and my friends. We say it all the time, okay, because it sure looked as though it was directly related to us hammering them with paperwork. Okay, so this 2 weeks ago, the city manager announces, okay, not only does he announce that he's retiring prematurely and leaving a job that pays him close to $400,000 a year with benefits. But you guys are never going to guess the reason for why he announces that he's retiring.
I give up.
So he can spend more time with his family.
That needs to be a bumper sticker in Carmel, I think. Unbelievable.
So he can spend more time with his family. And not only that, but he's fleeing the country.
Really?
Yes.
What do you mean fleeing the country?
He announced that he is retiring so he can go and walk his daughter to school in Italy.
Wow, that almost sounds like there may be some history there that he wants somewhere else.
I'm like, hey, Mr. City Manager, you know that that's where my family is from. Okay. But you asked a couple of minutes ago about how I see some light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. So they announced that on the right side of the paper that he is retiring. He's leaving he's prematurely breaking his contract. He's going to flee the country. And on the left side of that paper is the city manager complaining about how he wasn't notified when Carmel Beach was closed.
Wow. You know, this is the crux of why I took an interest in this case. What happened here was basically a city council turned into dictators. If I'm not mistaken, is it the California Constitution that guarantees your right to the beach? Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
So as I harp on so often here, you find all truth in nature. And I've lived in California and I know how important, like here where I am in Rhode Island, how important it is for me to be able to get the hell away from these screens and go out into the nature. And if I can make it to the beach, that is like the best of all worlds for me. Instantly unwind. And here we have these bureaucrats on the back of a hoax, manhandling people, throwing them down, cuffing them, arresting them, threatening people who want to sunbathe with 6 months in jail when the Constitution of California protects your right to have access to those waterways no matter what. And that is why I have taken such an interest in this case and done everything I can to support Theresa. And by the way, I would imagine it is many, many, many thousands of dollars that Theresa has put into this. So if you do donate, this is what you are donating for.
Oh, you know what, you guys, there's one other thing. I was just looking at the notes that we didn't go over. It was when I went back into the lower court and to remind people that the firm that Carmel hired are presently under investigation by the Standards Committee for violating the local rules. It's the reason that their main attorney wound up losing his partnership, and that the two associates, when they were leaving the profile up. Okay, so in the Northern District, they have a local rule. It's 5-1 that when you changing guards, changing attorneys, you have to let the court know. And just like filing a notice of appearance, it's local rule 5-1. So we start duking it out again, and the firm intentionally or neglectfully does not tell the court that this other attorney, the third attorney, is no longer with the firm. So what is it? It's back in July. I catch this firm violating the local rules for the 5th time in one case. In fact, I catch them violating local rule 5-1 3 times. I mean, I don't know if it's incompetence or they didn't want me to know that 2 more of their attorneys had also departed the firm. And I don't know if this is rampant incompetence across the country or it's specific to my case because I'm like a psycho ferret.
Did you make an issue of this?
I did. Yeah. Oh, and what wound up happening was, so I filed, it was an order to show cause. So I was asking my judge to finally and fully sanction them, because the sanctions that they've gotten before have been admonishments, which are like the lowest form of sanction. So I reported it to the judge and I said, hey, you have to finally do something. And he eventually said, no, I don't care. I'm not going to do anything about this. I mean, it's really
Wow.
abysmal. And I thought for sure he's going to take action. He's going to do something at this point. No, he didn't do anything. However, as soon as I uploaded that into the lawsuit, it was within 24 hours, the firm scrubbed both of those associates' profiles off their website, even though they had left them up there for months. Oh, and then they wound up withdrawing both of those attorneys from the case. So I mean, if the judge isn't going to do it, that's one thing. But the fact that I just keep humiliating this firm and their attorneys, so that, that's a whole other thing.
And the city as well. It's almost unfathomable, first off, that all of this is because of a hoax that we call COVID. And there are very few people in this country now that didn't realize that what happened in 2020 is not above board, to say the very least, and that is the very least. But you've changed the complete climate at the city there. Have to imagine you've changed the climate for a firm that I think at one point you said had 30 some people. That's a big firm. I don't understand why they keep trudging down this road. Why don't they just bow out?
I have asked myself the same question, and I'm never going to know what happened behind closed doors with the city council. But I would like to think that I have made them a lot more concerned. I think that if they were to go back, that they would have listened to me and not attacked the people for just trying to take a walk with their dogs in the ocean. I think it was a tough lesson for them, and particularly the city manager, because I've really been gunning for him. And the fact that he's like leaving the country, and on the other side of the paper, he's bemoaning and complaining about the fact that the beach was closed is really a beautiful gift from God and nature to see it announced like that.
Well, wait a minute. He's bemoaning that the beach was closed when he had a hand in ensuring that?
No, because he did it fully 5 years ago. What he's announcing a couple of weeks ago is that another agency closed the beach and didn't notify him first.
Wait a minute. Is the beach in Carmel closed, or has it been recently?
It was for a couple of days. They had some sort of sewage spill.
Oh.
And so the agency that's in charge of the sewers is the one that closed the beach.
Is that a city agency? And are they violating the Constitution? I mean, that happens in San Diego because the Tijuana River blows out at the very southern edge of California, and that water is supposedly always bacteria ridden. But what they do, if I'm not mistaken, is they put up signs saying it's too dangerous, but I don't think they physically close it. So this is a city sewage place that did this?
No, it's a county.
Doesn't that violate the Constitution?
It probably does, but I don't know. They may have only put up a sign.
That's what I've seen happen. They warn you that there's unsafe levels. But anyhow, to bring this all around, and I was just about to wrap up with these words when you told me they closed the beach for 2 days, but I would guess they probably put up signs indicating that there were high levels of bacteria and it wasn't safe. But basically what you did is stood up for the rights of everybody there. And I'm guessing you've ensured the beach won't be closed, but here you are. We should find out whether they closed it or posted. But if people everywhere took an interest in defending their rights in the way you have done, this would be a very, very different place right now, I'm guessing. And for the life of me, I don't understand why this firm doesn't just bow out. Everything they are defending is on the back of a thing that nobody and very few people in this country even believe at this point.
Well, that is encouraging that you think that. I would like to imagine that people have woken up from their slumber.
I know numbers of people who at the time were down my throat because I had opted not to get anything shot into my body. I've had the flu before. If that was a danger, I was pretty sure I could weather it, but I didn't believe it was a danger. So I made that choice for me, and they had a problem with it. I know numbers of people now that have regret from having taken it. And I know numbers of people who treat it almost in the way most of us treat 9/11 now. And these are people that are very mainstream.
Oh, great. Well, some of us knew right from the get-go.
Well, I was so impressed with what you've managed to do here. And to me, it's a big deal. And I think people should recognize the importance of having access to nature, and for people to dictate your rights away and the way that it happened there, that should never be allowed to stand, because this is how it inches in on us. If people sit around and do nothing, then that happens for 5 years, and then people forget. And sooner or later, that just becomes the way things are. And so much of this country that I remember when I was young, it's gone. So many of the freedoms, so just more things than I can imagine.
It's not just that we've lost freedoms and all that. We've lost our own sense of identity and self-respect,
To say the least. And to me, that was built in to these psychological operations. Before we came on the air, we were talking about this. I go out on social media that I don't use, by the way, nor do I post my work there, because I'm not willing to have my work controlled by another. And I hear people self-censoring in a way that is degrading. And that's another thing. Free speech was a big deal when I was young. I can go on almost any platform right now and hear people say degrading things like unalived and pew pew. And it is beyond ridiculous, because if you don't think the algorithm that you're afraid is censoring doesn't know that unalive means dead, then I don't know what to do for you. But what I do know is this is a psychological operation that has trained you into modifying your own speech, when at no point that I have seen did it ever say you can no longer say dead or gun or any other thing that people are self-censoring. And this is all a slippery slope that is going in the wrong direction. And I'm with you 100%, Jason. We have lost our identity.
Interesting. Well, to that point, it's a good thing that I was in town and got angry during the 4th of July weekend, because only God knows how they would have become so drunk on their own power that they just would have kept taking and taking and taking and enjoying the way that they were able to dominate people, much in the same way that they're dominating us with the language right now. But I would like to think that on some level, I have made them more aware or more concerned that they can't do that sort of thing in my town anymore. And yeah, you're right. It has been, I don't know what the problem is with the words kill and dead and gun. I don't know where along the line they decided that we can't say those words, but it's degrading and pathetic. And it's like kind of a hammer on my head whenever I hear channels say those words.
I've never seen it posted. Jason, have you ever seen it outright posted that there is a list of words like that you can't say on social media platforms?
No, not literally like that.
So it's basically a carefully crafted psychological operation that gets you to do it to yourself. And it is so ingeniously put together, either that or it's monkey see, monkey do, that certain words are just, it's verbatim now. To hear somebody on a platform say gun or dead, I can't even remember the last time I said it. And those are not offensive words. Those words have a meaning in the English language and have since the beginning of time. But getting back to the point, if this appeal goes forward and it goes your way, where do things end up at that point?
Okay, well, what wound up happening was, because I started duking it out with those guys in the lower court, I had to file another notice of appeal. We didn't get to cover this. And then the appellate court started sending me bills, and they wanted me to pay another $600 or to degrade myself to the level of pauper, where you have to file it's in form of pauperess, and you have to answer all these invasive invasion of privacy questions, or you lose. And it was right around this time, a couple of months ago, that there was something about that really made something click in my mind. And I thought, this is a great big con. I've already paid just $1,000 in legal fees to the court.
Just for filing?
Just for filing.
Okay.
Now they want me to pay another $600.
For what specifically?
For the next appeal to go forward. So I've already paid for an appeal back in May. Now they want me to pay again. And I thought something is going on here because they string you along. They do everything that they can to demoralize you. It goes on for years in the lower court. And then they go, oh, well, if you just pay us more money, we might rule in your favor. And then I figured out that the appellate court, they could not give me a decision until the spring of 2027. So I said, okay, I have to take a step back. I have to regroup and I have to figure out another way to attack this. And that's where I am right now. So I did not pay. I did not file, and they dismissed the second appeal. And right now, like I've said on this program before, I will discuss what it is that I've done, but I will never discuss what I'm about to do. So I'm in the process right now of figuring out another plan of attack. And I'm not going to tell people where I'm going, but that's where I'm going.
So this tactic is coming directly from the court, which really underscores that what we're talking about here is it's not really law as we would think about it. It's a corporate commerce.
That's right. That's right.
And what they are enforcing are not laws much of the time. It's corporate policy, which, to be honest about it, when you get pulled over, that's what that is. That is basically, in my mind, equivalent to a corporate policy to gain revenue. So, I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Did you feel like that was a strategy to bilk you of more money, or do you feel like that will happen every time?
I think that that's what the entire foundation of that court is to, they're, well, at least the lower court judges are vampires. And if they're not sucking actual money out of you, well, they're vampires and they're bankers. They're bankers. So they're either sucking actual money out of you or they're sucking your time out of you, which comes from your life force. And they'll suck both. And then they'll kind of dangle this carrot in front of you like, oh, well, and here's the other thing. So I paid the $600 back in May, and then they go, oh, well, it was late. So we're going to take your money and we're going to dismiss the appeal. I was like, what the hell? What is going on? So, yeah, anyway, so it's a con, and I was not okay with any of those three choices or being delayed for another year and a half. And I am not going to say anymore, but I am continuing on.
It's unbelievable. Why did they tell you that you won't get any kind of an outcome until 27?
Because that's how long appeals can take, is anywhere from 12 to 20 months.
It's unbelievable that we equate the idea of justice with any of this. Just the rules alone. Listening to what you've said, the attorneys themselves seem to have difficulty remembering all the rules. And every year there's more rules. And what's more ridiculous than anything is every year they legislate more. They want to call them laws, but things that have to get noticed. There's not a human being alive that could possibly remember everything that's happened in that one little county since the first court was set up. I mean, it's beyond unwieldy, and it is absolutely a one-sided commerce machine at this point.
That's right. That's right. So I am figuring out how to beat the, what did you call it? One-sided commerce machine?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I'm figuring out how to beat that because they all have weaknesses, and I am discovering their Achilles heel. And I think I've done that quite a bit with just reading the rules regarding the attorneys and the firms. And then I have another bigger monster to slay.
So the appeal that we opened up with, if you succeed at this, Where do you feel like that leaves the chessboard?
A settlement. A settlement.
And so, well, that's something that hasn't, I won't even ask. That's something that hasn't happened yet, but that would be a win.
Correct. That would be a solid win. Yeah.
And so you've also got this other appeal that you just refused to file for because you were being bilked for more money to feed the commerce machine. Is that appeal equally a big deal as the one you're dealing with and trying to wrap up here?
No, they just dismissed that one as well about a month ago. And so, like I already said, I have plans. It's not over. I think there was something about it that clicked a couple of months ago. I was like, they're setting the deadlines. They've been making me jump through their hoops for years. And there was like a pivotal moment mentally, psychologically, that everything shifted. And I thought, I'm going to start to make them abide by my rules and make them jump through hoops. And I'm going to become the master of this game. And I think it was important. And that's where I am now.
So I did a quick lookup on the Carmel closure, which occurred on October 22. Apparently there was a sewage spill that lasted less than 10 minutes. They estimated 150 gallons of sewage went in, and they estimate about 50 reached the Rocky tide pools. And in the sentence where they say that it's closed and will remain closed until samples dictate otherwise, they say in the same breath that signs have been posted on the beach telling people to avoid the beach or jumping in the water. So it's a mixed message. I'm guessing what you have done has even affected this, because while they're saying closed, it looks to me like it's what I see in San Diego. It's not closed. It's just posted that you shouldn't go in the water.
Oh, that's an interesting observation, honestly.
So if it was closed, there would have to be an official directive from someone in authority. And while this is News 8, by the way, KSBW, Action News. But what they're saying here is the beach was closed for a 10-minute spill and will remain closed. You said it was 2 days, but in the very next line, it says that signs were posted telling people to wait for it, avoid the beach. To me, that sounds like it's just posted.
Yeah, and that's in stark contrast to what they did 4th of July weekend, which was to cordon off the entire beach, close the parking lot with steel barricades, have one show of force with the cop that was the vehicle that was driving along the ocean. And it was clearly posted, it was closed, and you would be arrested if you walked on it. So those are two strongly different scenarios between one and the other.
Yeah, I may be wrong here. I took a look at San Diego and the Tijuana's been doing what it does. But what I see here is signage posted that says keep out sewage contaminated water. And it's even got the environmental seal for the city of California. That looks to me like a closure, which is not typically what I remember seeing.
And as far as the Coastal Act is concerned, they have to get permission from the Coastal Commission to be able to close it. So I don't know how that applies when it's in immediate danger, whether or not they can close it. But supposedly the Coastal Commission waived that during quote unquote COVID, and you didn't have to get permission anymore. So it seems as though, the rules are fluid and they apply when they want them to apply, and they can discard them when it doesn't serve them.
So I think we've pretty much covered and brought up to date. I did give the past episodes for people who want to go back and look what's happened. Do you feel like you're in a good position right now?
I do. And that shift that I had a couple of months ago was very important. And yeah, that's where I am right now. At some point, they are going to settle.
It's beyond ridiculous to me that they didn't settle years ago. You're estimating that it's just legal fees, something like $250,000. It's unbelievable. Isn't there anybody around that uses logic and reason to look at these things and just kind of say, we might save a few $100,000 if we just settle? It's unbelievable. But at the end of the day, I feel like you've had an absolute effect, at least for the people of Carmel, on their rights to access the nature, which God gave us, for lack of better terms. And I want to let everyone know that on the website, if you click up at the top, there's a playlist. On the playlist is one for Theresa Bacola. You can see many more playlists there that Rose has put together. You go to the homepage, hit the playlist, scroll down to Theresa Bacola, and you can also share the playlists. And Rose has put together many, many playlists to make it easy for people. But Theresa, I've got to thank you for what you've done for everybody. It would be interesting to me if we could have some idea of how many people nationwide actually stood up on the tail of Covidius Minimus to protect their rights. I doubt if we'll ever have any access to information like that. But Jason, anything you feel like we didn't cover?
Well, we had a few questions here that were gleaned from comments over the time that we've been covering this. Is there anything here, Theresa, that you want to go over before we sign off?
Oh, let's see.
There's the bar grievances. I would be interested in that. Have you had any outcome from bar grievances that you filed?
I have filed a slew of bar grievances. I don't know how they have affected the attorneys' careers, but every response back that I've gotten from the state bar is, we've investigated ourselves and found that we've done nothing wrong. It's kind of like the same thing as what happens at the police departments and the courts.
Well, this is what I've heard from more than once about bar grievances. There is an idea out there that if someone gets a bar grievance filed against them, that's one thing, however that goes. But the second time that it happens, it can affect their insurance. And if it does affect their insurance, that affects their employment.
Possibly. The state bar has told me I'm a vexatious complainant because I filed so many.
Oh, no.
Yes, I don't remember. I think I'm up to maybe 70 or 90 or something.
Wow.
And I basically, so what winds up happening is what the state bar investigator writes back and says, well, I investigated and then I file a bar grievance on the investigator.
I'd have to write a note that said, did you ever consider that maybe the system is vexatious?
And so I keep hammering them. I ignore them. And yes, I have heard actually from Randy Kelton that the insurance companies are the ones that get dinged. And who cares if they tell you you're vexatious?
That's what I have heard. I have heard that if you file the grievances, regardless of the reply you get, there is every possibility that if it happens more than once, the insurance companies, who are the ultimate bosses apparently, will take action.
Yeah, and also from what these associates did and what the main attorney did, I was filing a bar grievance on every partner in the firm for what their underlings or their colleagues were doing. So I don't know if it had any effect, because you have to kind of put the pieces together in the abstract, and it's like an aggregate of everything that you're saying. So let me see if that answers. Has any oversight agency ever acknowledged your evidence, or are they ignoring it completely? Well, what I also do is when I get a response back from the city attorney, when I was hammering them with FOIA or public records requests, which is I would diligently analyze his responses, and more times than not figure out that he was lying to me or using false authorities. And then I would detail it in case law and the government code or the penal code to illuminate how he had been lying, and send it to a bunch of employees in Carmel and the chief of police. And I got in discovery how this was disrupting things behind the scenes. And they were all in a tizzy about how I was hammering them with the law. And they started complaining to one another and figuring out, they were writing the city attorney to find out how they could stop me from submitting public records requests. And then I had the interim chief of police start to make house calls to my art studio.
What?
Oh, yeah. I didn't ever tell you guys about this.
The assistant chief of police is coming to where you work.
Yes, the interim chief of police.
And why is he doing this?
Well, he gave me one reason in emails where he said that he wanted to build bridges and figuring out how they could make the police department better. So he started making house calls to the studio. I think it was 3 years ago. And I opened the door and he asked, okay, this is after I've gotten arrested twice and thrown on the ground by the chief of police and his underlings. Well, the chief of police watched. So they had no problem kind of, beating me up. And then once I started hammering them behind the scenes with knowledge and the law, then I started getting house calls. And the chief of police asked if he could come inside to do some Christmas shopping for his wife.
Come on.
And then I found out that it's because they were all scheming behind the scenes to figure out how to, I can't remember what he said in the email. He said something like, if I visit her, it may cause her to change the tenor of her emails. So they were all freaking out behind the scenes. So that's kind of a long-winded way of answering that question.
Did you get those visits on film?
I did not, but he did acknowledge them in email, in writing.
Wow. Well, I guess it's clear you're having an impact.
Yes.
The whole thing just, if I was in charge there, I would literally sit down and use logic to determine how I could wrap this up. That would be absolutely what I would do. And I don't understand how this just keeps rolling on and on and on. And every time we talk to you, more people have lost their position. I mean, no good is coming of this on their side.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a war of attrition. And I think they're like, well, she's going to give up eventually. But if they don't realize that that is not going to come to fruition at this point, then they're dumber than I thought. And the insurance companies are the ones that are holding the purse strings. And I'm thinking that they are assuming they're going to outlast me.
Are you Sicilian?
I am.
Maybe you should send them a copy of Princess Bride to give them a clue.
I am. And I don't know if I've ever said this on your show before, but I come from a line of vigilantes. My great-grandfather's last name was Vigilante.
Oh, what? Literally?
Yes, literally.
Wow.
I still have cousins. I think they're second cousins who have retained the last name of Vigilante, but that's the line that I come from. Yeah.
So in your family tree, the last name gives rise to how we use the word vigilante.
Yes, that's right. That's
Wow.
right. It's in my blood.
Maybe you should just send them your family tree.
Yeah, so the same way that they can kind of train dogs to do certain things, it really must be in my DNA.
All right. Are there any other questions that we haven't hit here?
Okay, yeah, I'll do this last one. So I really was pissed off at that attorney that wound up getting my case dismissed because he was breaking tons of rules. He was arrogant. He should have never been there in the first place. And so I was kind of gunning for him. And then when I saw that he was boasting on the new firm's website that he had beaten me when I was still in the ring, what I imagined happening was those partners got that email from me that I took great care to write. And they called him in to their office and they said, hey, are you talking about this case or are you talking about another one? And he said, no, I was. And they were like, pack your bags and get the hell out of our office.
And this is an entirely new firm, too.
This is an entirely new firm. And it was so exhilarating to consider. I'm like, hey, buddy, you didn't know who I was. I'm not going to get knocked down and not get back up. And I know you were probably gloating about the fact that you got the case dismissed, but I'm still in the ring. And what a tough weekend that must have been for him, because some idiot podunk woman who has no formal training in the law got him fired again.
Did he have grievances filed against him?
Oh, many.
I guarantee you that they're well aware. Do you know if the original firm, the one you described as having over 30 people involved, are they still hired by the city of Carmel? Do you know?
They are still presently the firm, and they have attached their fifth attorney to the case.
Wow.
Yeah. Some new associate is now on the case. Yeah. But I think that to withdraw completely would be concerning to them, and it would be kind of like waving the white flag. And I think that that's the reason that they're staying in there. And also because they have gotten such strict cover from the magistrate judges in that court.
This whole thing to me, and one of the main reasons I took a big interest in it, is because it's spiritual in my eyes. Your ability to go out into nature where all truth resides, and I know the effect it has for me when I get to leave all this artificial crap and go out, how refreshing it is that it's even protected by the Constitution of the state of California. Do you feel like there was a spiritual component in the timing of everything that's happened here and how it's unfolded?
Absolutely. Just for example, what it looks like on the front page of our paper a couple of weeks ago, that there is a penance to pay when you violate the laws of nature. And I know he didn't do it on purpose, but retiring and complaining about closing the beach, one on the left side and one on the right side, to me means that I am on the right path, and that I was called to duty, and that there was no one else that could have taken on the job the way that I did in the county, even though I've met a lot of great people and they've supported me along the way, but I was a messenger for nature and for God that weekend. So yes, it certainly is spiritual, and just battling the judges in that court, it really is like it's the ancient battle of good versus evil.
All right. Do you have anything else, Jason?
So this last point that Rose has brought up is interesting. After years of filings, arrests, and physical assault, what has kept you going mentally through all of this? I'm asking because Brandon Big Sib has given up and states that it was a waste of time and that the system is too corrupt, which is very sad. He openly said that he wasted his money and time. How does that make you feel?
You only lose when you stop fighting. This isn't for the faint of heart, and you have to have a certain type of mettle to keep putting one foot in front of the other. But I mean, not only do I not like losing, but I will not lose. And whatever it takes to win is what I'm going to have to exert.
There you go.
So I could not imagine giving up. I honestly could not live with myself. I would rather die. I had people tell me, well, you should take a plea deal. You should hire an attorney. And by July of 2023, I was so worn out and nothing that I was trying was working. And I said, okay, I'm not doing either. And I went in there finally and got those charges dismissed. And so, yeah, the only time that you lose is when you stop fighting. So that's why I'm in it to win. It sounds kind of like a cliche, but that's my am.
I mean, I'm with you and I respect that. At the same time, I get where Big Sib's coming from, because I kind of get a sense someone like that who's on the up and up probably has an expectation that they can make corrections in some way that will stick. And at some point, you just recognize there is no rebuilding this system. That's the way I view it. It's got to come down at some point. Every time we talk about anything like this, it's like it doesn't even matter that there's rules. They just do what they do, independent of what's supposed to happen. And you've proven that in spades.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't look at it as though I have to bring the whole system down. I look at it as though I'm on my own path. I clearly have been having victories along the way, retirements and withdrawals, and they have to spend more time. I mean, he even announced the reason, the old joke, the running joke that we have between me and my friends. So I don't look at that. Maybe that is kind of, in a certain way, it is bringing the system down one pawn or one knight or one rook at a time. And eventually I will get checkmate. But yeah, if I was concerned with bringing the whole system down, it would be so overwhelming that I wouldn't be able to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting that I think good people who go in are trying to help correct problems or at least see an improvement in some way. And over we see what actually happens. It like I went in where I live to simply go get meats and bounds from my house. Nobody in the building, no one knew what meats and bounds was. One of them in the department that should know what meats and bounds is got on the internet and spelled MEAT for their search. And this speaks to, it's not just that the training at this point, this has been going on so long that the new people coming in are being trained in a way that the people from 20 years ago probably wouldn't even recognize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that during Covidius Minimus, that they had been given an amount of power that was perhaps unbeknownst to politicians previously, and they couldn't resist. And here I am, 5 years later? But I think that if we forget about what happened back then and just let bygones be bygones, it's going to embolden them to do it again in the future.
All right, Theresa, is there anything else?
Yeah, if people want to get on my email list, they can email me at my name, theresavicola.com. And I don't send it out every week. It's like probably once a month, but people can stay updated that way. And then, like I was saying earlier in the show, that I do videos. Would that cover it?
Well, I think we've covered it pretty well. It brings everything up to date. Of course, when the appeal finds an outcome, which sounds like it might be in a year or two, we want to know what happens here. And I think that there's no doubt that you made a difference, particularly at the city and particularly for certain law firms. And I think that's a good thing. And I think it was worth all your energy and effort. And I also think there's a chance it made people reflect on how things were done. It's funny to me that man commented on the beach being closed, because I'm guessing had everything that you've been involved in never happened, that comment never would have been made.
Which comment is that?
He was bummed that the beach was closed because of the sewage spill. I think that was a Freudian slip in a way.
I do too. And it was orchestrated by the divine hand.
All right. Well, why don't you give folks your web address one more time? And again, if you folks donate, you're supporting what's gone on here. And it is one of very few people that I'm aware of who stood up against basically the dictates that were being thrown wildly about starting in 2020 for the first time in this country that I'm aware of.
That's right. So, yeah, I have sold a couple of pieces to listeners of your show.
Oh, good.
And if people want to go to my website, it's my name. So it's theresabicola.com, THERESA, B as in boy, UCCOLA.com. And they can have a look at my stained glass work. If they want to make a donation, they can go to Give Send Go. And it is Help Theresa in Her Fight for Justice. And they can read a little bit about the case and all the retirements and firings and why it is that I did what I did. And then I also have PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App if anybody wants to donate to help me to keep going, because it does take an inordinate amount of time. And I think that's it. I want to thank you guys again for having me on and keeping a kind of a journal of sorts from July 3rd, 2020 on.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And as usual, keep us up to date. And to reiterate the past episodes, if people want to go back and listen to everything that rolled out here, these are the episodes: 610, 479, 522.5. That's a 1 hour, and 580.5. We covered everything from the outset. And Theresa, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for standing up for everybody, for the rights that they have to go out into the creation and benefit as they will. You want to add anything, Jason, or are we there?
So did you make sure that everyone understands where they can follow? Is all the information you want out there?
Oh, sorry. Also, if they want to send me a friend request on Facebook, because I do frequent live streams on that website. And yeah, if they want to follow what's going on.
All right. And be sure to catch Theresa's live stream. Rose says they're hysterical. And once again, if you go to the top navigation of crow777radio.com, there is a playlist link. You just hit it, go down. You can find Theresa. There are many, many that have put together. You can check them out, law and other things. And you can share if you choose to do so. With that, we're going to bring episode 658.5 to a close. And thank you so much, Theresa. And I'd like to wish you all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era. There it is, man. Cheers.
Belief is the enemy of knowing.